China controls 92% of the world's rare earth refining capacity. That means if you want electric vehicles, advanced missiles, wind turbines, or next-generation fighter jets, you have to depend on China. But now, there's a problem for China, and a solution for the rest of us. Brazil holds nearly a quarter of the world's known rare earth reserves, and it may be the only country this decade capable of scaling meaningful heavy rare earth production outside China. The United States wants access. The European Union wants access. India and Japan want access. But Brazil doesn't want to choose sides. It wants leverage, and that changes everything. Why do rare earths matter? Let's quickly understand why this is so important. Rare earth elements are not actually rare, but they are extremely difficult to process. And processing is where the real power lies. There are two categories: light rare earths, heavy rare earths. Heavy rare earths are the strategic ones. They're essential for precision-guided weapons, advanced radar systems, permanent magnets in EV motors, high-efficiency wind turbines. Right now, China accounts for roughly 69% of global mining production, around 92% of global refining output, and close to total control of heavy rare earth processing. So even if another country mines rare earths, chances are they still send them to China for refining. That's the choke point. And breaking that choke point is now a strategic priority for Washington, Brussels, Tokyo, and New Delhi, which brings us to Brazil. Brazil has the world's second-largest rare earth reserves, nearly 25% of known global stock. But here's what makes Brazil particularly interesting. Many of its deposits are ionic clay formations. These are typically shallower, easier to separate, potentially lower cost to process. In other words, Brazil isn't just large in reserves. It's potentially scalable. And scalability is the key word. Most countries that talk about diversifying away from China Danti have the geology to do it quickly. Brazil does, which is why it may be the only realistic heavy rare earth alternative this decade. But Brazil is not rushing into America's arms. Under President Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva, Brazil is pursuing a calculated strategy. Brazil has signed a formal critical minerals agreement with India, opened negotiations with the European Union, held discussions with the United States, and deliberately avoided joining a US-led international minerals consortium. That last point is critical. Brazil does not want exclusivity, it wants optionality. The strategy is simple: engage everyone, commit to no one. Brazil wants technology transfer, domestic refining capacity, processing facilities inside Brazil, higher value industrial development. It does not want to be just another commodity exporter. Brazil isn't trying to sell dirt. It's trying to build an industrial base. And that changes the negotiation dynamics dramatically. But the United States may have to compromise. Now, let's look at the United States' position. The United States increased rare earth mining output by around 12% last year. But nearly all of that production is in light rare earths. Heavy rare earth capacity inside the U.S. remains extremely limited. And heavy rare earths are the ones most critical for defense applications. Meanwhile, China maintains overwhelming control of the heavy rare earth supply chain. So Washington faces a dilemma. It wants to reduce reliance on China, secure critical supply chains, prevent partners from deepening ties with Beijing, but it has very few scalable alternatives. Australia is important, but limited. Other projects are small or early stage. Brazil is different. Brazil is large enough to matter. That creates pressure for compromise. The U.S. would prefer exclusive access or supply guarantees. Brazil prefers open competition among buyers. And because Washington needs heavy rare earth supply, it may have to accept Brazil's non-exclusive model. The political clock is ticking. There is a time constraint. Brazil holds national elections in October. That narrows the negotiation window to the first half of 2026. After that, domestic politics become more complicated. Rare earths are politically sensitive. Nationalist narratives could emerge. Claims that Brazil is giving away its reserves. Concerns about foreign dominance, fears of resource dependency. The Lula administration wants local processing and industrialization precisely to counter that narrative. A deal is still likely, but it has to be structured carefully and quickly. Even if international deals move forward, Brazil still faces internal constraints. 3 major bottlenecks remain: financing, off-take agreements, environmental licensing. The most important near-term variable is legislative reform. Brazil is considering Law Proposal 2780/2024, a framework that would establish a national policy for critical and strategic minerals. If approved, and current odds suggest around 70% probability in the first half of 2026, it would accelerate environmental licensing, provide fiscal incentives, support R&D development, reduce project risk, create special customs regimes for mining equipment. In simple terms, Brazil's geology is ready. Its bureaucracy needs to catch up. Industrialization requires policy certainty. And that's the piece still being built. What this means globally: this isn't just about mining. It's about the future structure of the global economy. For decades, supply chains were optimized for cost. Now, they're optimized for security. Governments no longer ask, "Where is it cheapest?" They ask, "Where is it safest?" If Brazil succeeds in scaling rare earth production while maintaining diversified partnerships, it becomes strategically indispensable. Not a superpower, but a swing power, a middle power with leverage. And in a multipolar world, leverage matters. China built dominance by integrating mining and refining over decades. The United States is trying to rebuild industrial depth. Europe is scrambling to secure materials for its green transition. India and Japan want insulation from geopolitical risk. Brazil sits in the middle of all of this. It has the geology, growing diplomatic leverage, and an opportunity to move up the value chain. If it plays this correctly, Brazil doesn't just diversify global supply chains, it reshapes them. The rare earth competition isn't really about minerals. It's about who gets to industrialize next. Brazil is no longer just a resource exporter. It's negotiating from a position of strength. And the outcome of those negotiations will shape the next decade of global energy, defense, and industrial policy. If you want deeper analysis on global power shifts, supply chains, and strategic resources, subscribe. Because the next geopolitical battleground may not be in Washington or Beijing. It may be in